The siren wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It slid into the night like a blade, clean and deliberate, cutting the quiet street in half. The woman slowed her car, hands already shaking before she realized they were. She pulled over beneath a flickering street light, the kind that never fully commits to darkness or light. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. She rolled down the window before the officer even reached her door. "Good evening," she said, careful, respectful, practiced. The officer didn't answer right away. He stood there, one hand resting near his holster, eyes scanning her face, her hair, the interior of the car. The silence stretched just long enough to feel intentional. "License and registration," he said finally. She handed them over with both hands. Her name was Amara Lewis, 32, emergency room nurse, no criminal record. On her way home after a double shift. None of that mattered, because the moment the officer glanced at her ID, something in his posture changed. His shoulders squared, his jaw tightened, the air between them shifted, heavy with an accusation that had not yet found its words. "Step out of the vehicle," he said. "Is there a problem, officer?" Amara asked. His eyes hardened. "Step out of the vehicle." She obeyed. She always obeyed. She didn't know that within the next hour. Her dignity would be stripped in public, her body forced into submission on cold asphalt, her name turned into a headline, and a truth buried deep inside a police report would begin a chain reaction that no one, not even the officer, could stop. And she definitely didn't know that this night would end a career. Just not the one people expected. Amara stood barefoot on the road, her shoes forgotten beside the open car door. The asphalt was still warm from the day, but the night air cut through her thin jacket. Cars passed slowly, drivers craning their necks, curiosity lighting their faces. "Hands where I can see them," the officer said. She raised them. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Not fear of guilt, fear of misunderstanding, fear of becoming another story that began with "she complied" and ended with "it was justified." "What did I do?" she asked quietly. The officer, his name tag read Officer Grant Hale, didn't answer. He walked around her, slow, deliberate, like a predator circling prey. He shined his flashlight into her back seat, then into her trunk. "Why are you nervous?" he asked. "I'm not," she said. "I'm just tired. I worked." "Don't talk unless I ask you to." Her mouth closed instantly. Grant's radio crackled. A voice asked for his status. He ignored it. "Turn around," he said. She turned. "Kneel." The word hit her harder than a slap. "I'm sorry?" she said, thinking she must have misheard. "Kneel on the ground, now." The car slowed to a crawl. Someone lifted a phone. Amara looked at the road, then back at him. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong," she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to steady it. "Please, if there's an issue, tell me." "I'm cooperating." Grant stepped closer. His voice dropped. "You don't get to tell me how this goes." For a moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. His shadow stretched over her like a threat. Every instinct screamed at her to stay standing, to demand her rights, to refuse humiliation. But instinct had learned something over generations. Survival comes before pride. She lowered herself to her knees. The sound of skin meeting asphalt was quiet, but the humiliation was deafening. A woman across the street gasped. Someone muttered, "This is messed up." Grant didn't care. "Hands on your head," he ordered. She obeyed. He pulled out his phone, not his radio, not his body cam, and took a photo. "What is that for?" Amara asked. "Evidence," he said. She swallowed. Inside his patrol car, the body camera sat off. Grant had turned it off 10 minutes earlier, citing a malfunction. It was a habit, one he'd perfected over years of stops that never became complaints. Because complaints from people like Amara rarely went anywhere. "You fit the description," he said. "Of what?" she asked. He smiled slightly. "Someone suspicious." The word hung in the air, ugly and familiar. Another officer arrived, Officer Daniel Ruiz, younger, quieter, his eyes darting from Amara to Grant and back again. He hesitated when he saw her kneeling. "What's going on?" Ruiz asked. Grant didn't look at him. She was speeding, acting nervous. Possible DUI. "That's not true," Amara said quickly. "I don't drink. I just got off work." Ruiz looked at her scrubs, still visible beneath her jacket. His brow furrowed. "You work at Mercy General?" he asked. "Yes," she said. Grant shot him a look. Ruiz cleared his throat. "Grant, should we—" "Stay in your lane," Grant snapped. Ruiz went silent. Grant crouched in front of Amara. You want to make this easy on yourself, he said softly, or hard? What do you want from me? She asked. The question broke something open in her voice. Exhaustion poured out thick and uncontrollable. She thought of her patients, of the way she held their hands when they were scared, of how often she'd told them, "You're safe now." She wasn't safe. Grant stood abruptly. Search the vehicle, he told Ruiz. Ruiz hesitated again. Do we have probable cause? Grant's head snapped toward him. I said search it. Ruiz walked to the car, his movements stiff. He opened the door, rifled through the glove compartment, the back seat. He found nothing. Nothing here, Ruiz said. Grant's jaw tightened. He turned back to Amara. Stand up. She did. Then, without warning, he grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her back. She cried out in pain. Stop resisting, he shouted. I'm not resisting, she screamed, tears spilling down her face. Phones were out now, multiple, recording. Grant shoved her forward, forcing her back down to her knees. The crowd murmured, anger bubbling just beneath the surface. Sir, you're hurting her, someone yelled. Grant ignored them. Ruiz froze. Grant, he said quietly, urgently. People are recording. Grant looked around for the first time. Saw the phones, the faces, the witnesses. For a split second, something like doubt flickered across his face. Then it vanished. He leaned down close to Amara's ear. No one will believe you, he whispered. But what Grant didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that inside Amara's car, taped beneath the dashboard, was a small black device she had installed after a coworker warned her. Protect yourself. A dash camera. And it had been recording everything. Not just the stop, not just the orders, but the lie that was about to come next. As Grant reached for his cuffs, Officer Ruiz made a decision that would change everything. And the truth, silent until now, was about to find its voice. Officer Ruiz's hand hovered inches from his radio. Grant noticed. Their eyes met, and in that brief moment, something unspoken passed between them. Authority versus conscience. Habit versus consequence. Grant's stare was a warning. Ruiz's hesitation was a fracture. Cuff her, Grant said. Ruiz didn't move. Grant, he said, voice low, tight. We should slow this down. Grant straightened. Are you refusing an order? Amara was still on her knees, her breath ragged, wrists burning from the pressure. Tears blurred the streetlights into trembling halos. She didn't look at either of them. She stared at the ground, counting breaths, the way she did with patients who were about to panic. In, out, Ruiz exhaled sharply. I'm saying we don't have cause. And your camera? Isn't your concern, Grant cut in. The crowd had grown. Someone shouted, let her go! Another voice, this is racism. A car horn blared in anger. Grant grabbed his cuffs again. That's when Ruiz spoke into his radio. Dispatch, I need a supervisor at my location. Possible escalation. Grant spun on him. What the hell are you doing? Ruiz met his gaze. My job. For the first time that night, Grant looked rattled. Within minutes, red and blue lights flooded the street. A supervisor arrived, Sergeant Elaine Morris. Calm, composed, eyes sharp enough to miss nothing. She took in the scene in seconds. The kneeling woman, the phones, Grant's rigid posture, Ruiz's clenched jaw. What's going on? Morris asked. Grant answered immediately. Traffic stop turned hostile. Suspect resisted. We're securing the scene. Morris looked at Amara. Ma'am? Amara lifted her head. Her voice shook, but it didn't break. I didn't resist. He ordered me to kneel. He hurt my arm. I asked why I was stopped. He never told me. Morris turned to Ruiz. Ruiz swallowed. I didn't see resistance, Sergeant. And I didn't hear probable cause. Silence fell heavy. Morris's gaze returned to Grant. Body cam footage? Grant's mouth tightened. Malfunction. Morris raised an eyebrow. Again? Before Grant could respond, a woman from the crowd stepped forward. I recorded everything, she said, holding up her phone. So did he, and her, and them. Phones lifted like witnesses taking an oath. Grant's face hardened. This is getting out of control. Morris nodded. It is. She turned back to Amara. Ma'am, you can stand. You're not under arrest. Amara rose slowly, legs trembling. Grant opened his mouth to protest. Officer Hale, Morris said sharply, step back. For the first time in years, Grant obeyed. The scene dispersed slowly, buzzing with anger and adrenaline. Amara sat on the curb, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her. Ruiz stood nearby, guilt and relief warring on his face. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She looked at him. "You stopped it from getting worse." He nodded, unable to meet her eyes. Later that night, Amara went home. She showered until her skin ached. She barely slept. By morning, the video was everywhere. The kneeling, the orders, the shove, the lie, and the dashcam audio clear, undeniable, capturing Grant's whisper, "No one will believe you." They did. The department placed Grant on administrative leave. An internal investigation followed. Grant called it a witch hunt. He told anyone who would listen that he was being sacrificed to public pressure. But the pressure kept building. More people came forward. Complaints long buried resurfaced. Patterns emerged. Cameras that malfunctioned. Reports that didn't match witnesses. Stops that escalated without cause. Ruiz testified. So did civilians. So did data. Grant sat in a hearing room weeks later, watching his career unravel frame by frame. His badge lay on the table, heavier than it had ever been on his chest. The final blow came when Morris presented a timeline. Dates, names, videos, each one echoing the same truth. This wasn't a mistake. It was a method. The decision was swift. Termination, loss of pension, referral for criminal review. Grant left the building without ceremony, cameras flashing, his face tight with disbelief. He had enforced the law for 15 years. Now it had turned its gaze on him. Amara returned to work. Patients recognized her. Some thanked her. Some cried. She didn't want to be a symbol. She wanted to heal, to move forward, to forget the feeling of asphalt beneath her knees. But she understood something now. Silence protects power. So she spoke, at community meetings, at hearings, on screens across the country. Calm, clear, unafraid. She told the truth. And it traveled farther than fear ever could. The night she'd been forced to kneel had tried to erase her dignity. Instead, it exposed a lie and ended a career built on it.